Hello everybody and welcome. Today we're gonna show you how to turn an ambitious and revolutionary project into a whole crisis and war with a few ingredients like revenge, lies, power, selfishness, conquest, imperialism, and alliance. But first of all, what was the Suez Canal?
So basically, the Suez Canal was opened in Egypt in 1869, and it really helped for navigation because before, transportation ships went all the way from Europe through all of Africa so they could get to Asia. But with this canal, they could go through Egypt and pass in a shorter amount of time to Asia to transport merchandise and products. When the Suez Canal was done, the company that made the canal had many investors from Europe. So the French invest on the canal, the Austrian also, the Russian, and the ruler of Egypt in that time that it was called Ismail Pasha sold a 44% of the canal to the British government in order to pay the debts that they had in order to do the canal. So when the 44% of the canal was sold to the British government, the British took over the canal. So they sent a lot of boats through the canal, and they had a military base there. And yes, it's basically the British thought that it was 100% of them, and they really wanted to be theirs. So then the Egypt ruler saw that this was not good because they were going to take over the canal that had help a lot in Egypt. So he started to ask for help in from other countries. Okay, so after some time, the main causes of the conflict was basically that the Americans and the British had also promised to finance a construction that the Egyptians were going to do of the Aswan High Dam, that it was another project. So they didn't pay what they were going to pay. So the Egypt president that was called Nasser started to ask for help from the Soviet Union. So when the British saw that the Soviet Union was going to help the Egyptians, they stopped trusting them. So the conflict started to form, and it was a disaster. One of the main causes also was the fact that European countries wanted to had the canal only for them in order to have more transport to sell more products and everything to Asia, and bring things from Asia. So they wanted to have that canal for them, so it was really difficult. Through this brief explanation of what was happening, we can see that our recipe is going to start to form because the European countries wanted the power of having the canal. They wanted to conquest the canal, and they said a bunch of lies, and they yes, it was really bad in that time. And it also formed alliance between the Soviet Union and Egypt. So these are some of the things that started to form due to the conflict.
Now going on to the main events. On February 28, 1922, Egypt is declared a sovereign state by Britain. On March 16, 1922, Egypt achieves independence. On August 26, 1936, the draft of the Anglo-Egyptian Treaty is signed. Britain is allowed to maintain 10,000 men in the Suez Canal zone and is given control all over Sudan. On October 8, 1951, the Egyptian government announces that they will eject Britain from the Suez Canal zone and take control of Sudan. On October 21, 1951, British warships arrived to Egypt. On May 11, 1953, Britain threatens to use force against Egypt over the Suez Canal dispute. October 19, 1954, Britain cedes the Suez Canal to Egypt in a new treaty. They are given a 2-year period set for withdrawal. On November 13, 1954, General Nasser is in full control of Egypt. May 21, 1955, the Soviet Union announces that they will sell arms to Egypt. On July 19, 1956, the US withdraws financial aid for Aswan Dam project. Reason: Egypt's increased ties to the Soviet Union. July 28, 1956, Britain freezes Egyptian assets. July 30th, 1956. Britain Prime Minister Anthony Eden imposes an arms embargo on Egypt and informs President Nasser that he cannot have the Suez Canal. August 1st, 1956. Britain, France, and the US hold talks on escalating the Suez Crisis. August 2nd, 1956. Britain mobilizes armed forces. August 23rd, 1956. The Soviet Union announced it will send troops if Egypt is attacked. September 14th, 1956. Egypt is in full control of the Suez Canal. September 15th, 1956. Soviet ships and pilots arrived to help Egypt run the canal. October 29th, 1956. Egypt intentionally sunk 40 ships to block the canal. December 24th, 1956. British and French troops leave Egypt. March 1957. The canal reopens. In here, we can add some more ingredients. We can add revenge for what the British thought they were doing, that was getting the canal back. We can add selfishness from the British and the Americas withdrawing the funds for the Aswan Dam project, and we can add imperialism because British literally wanted to take over Egypt and one of his assets. So, what were the consequences of this crisis? After the Suez Canal crisis, General Nasser emerged as the preeminent leader of Arab nationalism. Nasserism became an ideology in the Arab world. The confrontations at the canal had opposite effects than those intended by the planners of the invasion. The intervention stimulated radical nationalism. Britain and France lost most of their influence in the Middle East due to these confrontations, and Israel regained shipping rights but didn't have the freedom to use the canal whenever they wanted to. They also have disputes with Egypt due to the episode. Now, to answer this question, is the story similar to that of the Panama Canal? Well, both of the canal's purpose was to open new routes that were shorter and could help for trade or to travel in a faster way through ships. The Panama Canal was built in order for the Americans to pass from coast to coast in a shorter amount of time, and the Suez Canal was built to pass from Europe to Asia in a shorter amount of time. They both had conflicts, because Colombia had Panama, but the Panama became part of the US, and that formed a conflict. And in the Suez Canal was originally from the Egyptians, but then the British wanted to take the canal from them.